That's so sweet. The Carpenters from Meatless Mondays.
But at rainy days and Mondays, she's depressed.
I know. Well, that made, for meat eaters, it could be depressing. But we're back on Foodie and the Beast with David and Nikki Nellis. We've got Glenn Babcock in. He's the executive chef at Naj, and he's done a brave thing. Along with everything else on his great menu, he's added Meatless Monday items.
Yes.
And, hearing you talk, and you and I think we met once before briefly, so we
sure.
never
I
really
think it was actually about making sausage, ironically. So.
Yeah. We're killing
You're
something.
so diverse.
But this really does feed back into this whole sustainability movement too.
It does.
And we were talking about that during the break. Why don't you?
Well, I think the important thing is that if there's any kind of connection at all between local grass-fed beef or grass-fed beef in general, or grass-fed meats or natural meats versus Meatless Mondays and how those things go together, they're absolutely connected. It's actually one of those things that drew us into the whole movement in the first place, being a fish house where we're kind of focusing on sustainable fish. So the idea is that we're looking ultimately trying to do what we think is maybe the right thing. And maybe that's jumping on the bandwagon of Meatless Mondays and trying to encourage less meat consumption based on how even the production of meat in general, water use, all these things to produce the food that the cows eat. The return is so much less than what you get on a good hearty plate of vegetables. And so if it is the future, then let it be up to the chefs, and let us give our best shot and our best foot forward in terms of how can we make the transition so smooth in terms of creating high quality, interesting dishes that are actually vegetarian.
Well, Deborah wants to add something. Go ahead, Deborah.
I think that when meat is raised correctly, it doesn't use those resources. So let's be clear about that pastured and grass-fed meat is not using excessive amounts of water or land, and it's enriching the environment, not depleting it.
So when it's done correctly, when farming is done right, not like the big agribusiness.
And that's really what dominates the scene these days anyway.
Yes.
So,
Right. So
all right,
it all goes hand in hand.
Let's make sure everybody knows how to find you and where Naj is.
Well, Naj is located at 1600 in Rhode Island in Washington, D.C., right there at Scott Circle. We're about 3 blocks southeast of DuPont Circle. So if you can find that general place. We're not too far from Birch and Barley either. I'll give that shout out.
And it's spelled N-A-G-E, not N-O-S-H. That's Nosh, that's Yiddish, that's something else. All right, thanks. Well, let's get back to our other buddy over there, Greg Engert. I got a question for you. Do you guys is there such a thing as a cider dinner?
There is such a thing, and actually that's something that we are going to be doing in the spring. A lot of people think we do it now, but
I was going to say, in the spring, that seems odd. You would think now.
Right, but the funny thing is, it's like we associate, fresh apples with now, but once they've been fermented and aged and conditioned, it's springtime is when that vintage is ready. So we're going to try to put together a dinner with this year's vintage of ciders from all over the world. In the springtime.
But so like wine, do ciders age? Would you want to? So like with what we're drinking today, are any of them aged? Are they recent vintages?
The cool thing is that they're all aged before we get them.
Okay.
So that's part of their flavor development. But you can age them. But just like with wine, only a small percentage are really age worthy, and those are the more acidic.
Okay.
So the previous one we did from Herefordshire, from Oliver's, that one's got that really great tartness. It's higher in alcohol. That'll last a little longer. The one that I just poured is from a winery in Wisconsin called Appletro, that sources their apples from Brightwood Orchards.
This almost tastes like a sherry.
Exactly. This is actually eau de vie of apples, so distilled apples that have been unoaked, unoaked spirit, that's blended with fresh pressed juice from sweeter apples to knock down the alcohol and give it a little bit of sweetness to balance against the booze. And it's called Pommeau. It's a classic style from Normandy, 19% alcohol. So
there's a lot of this is a definite dessert wine. So are you getting a lot of requests for cider?
We sell an incredible amount of cider.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's wild. And I've worked with some producers to get draft and casks from England primarily, and some French, and then we're working on some of the some American cideries, because it's the perfect thing for people who love wine. They love refreshing wine or champagne. It's sparkling. It's got a little bit of tartness. It's not super sweet, but lower in alcohol, so sessionable and largely more affordable when we serve it on draft or cask.
Right.
So if people out there want to know which ciders to buy to cook with and how to do that, what do they do? Good question.
You know what they do. I mean, go to Birch and Barley.
They go to Birch and Barley. Hello, get an
Take
education.
me aside.
That's called T-ball. I just set it up there
I'm
for
sorry.
you.
We see you at Birch and Barley all the time, and it's impossible to take you aside because everybody wants your attention.
Greg,
do
talk
my
to
best.
me.
But no, I mean it's really cool. I think you come in for beer, but we're just always trying with Kyle. And Tiffany,
Kyle Bailey, who is the chef,
McIsaac,
the pastry
executive
chef
and pastry chef. The three of us are just constantly just trying to learn new things and then to teach new things.
Well, what about over at the new Rustico that just opened in Boston? Is there a cider program there
Absolutely.
too? Oh, there is.
And it is a little bit more focused, but you'll find actually two of the ciders I brought today, the Quebecois from Michel Jaudoin and the Normandy Poire or pear cider is stock over there as well. So if it goes great with food, and Chef Steve Menino makes awesome food at both Rusticos, so I feel like we need to have great ciders.
It's depressing when you Quebecois and all that. It's I thought that I could just learn how to say Vermont and I'd be okay with cider, but who the hell can order Quebecois? Mon Dieu, mon ami. All right, so that's Greg Engert from Birch and Barley and Neighborhood Restaurant Group. Speaking of which, I just want to quickly thank the folks that support this show. Neighborhood Restaurant Group is a longtime sponsor, and that's Birch and Barley, that's Tallulah, that's Evening Star, that's Vermilion, that's Buzz Bakery, that's two Rusticos now. Did I leave anybody out?
Columbia Firehouse.
Yeah, sorry about that, man.
It's okay.
You got to pay more. But also Georgetown Bagelry and our friends at Farmers and Fishers and Founding Farmers. Thanks for supporting the show.
All right, so as we do on every show, this is a big week of events, and this week there is a huge event. Unfortunately, there are no tickets left, but it doesn't mean you can't support this organization.
That's right. What are we going to do? We'll scalp our tickets. Now, this is for the Capital Food Fight 2010 to benefit DC Central Kitchen. It's this Thursday, November the 11th, and it's a monster event. It brings together celebrity chefs, a cooking battle, and lots of food to taste while raising money for DC Central Kitchen. And DC Central Kitchen feeds about 4,000 people a day on the streets of Washington, and they also teach culinary skills to formerly homeless people. And they do a whole lot more. The sort of head dudes for this thing are celebrity chef Jose Andres, whom you all know because he owns restaurants here locally, and also of No Reservations fame, Anthony Bourdain, and he's the co-host, and we also have top chefs Tom Colicchio and Chef Michael Mina as judges.
And also Eric Repair. I don't know why he's not on there, but
and
Eric's
local chefs Will Artley and Victor Albizu and Scott Druneau of The Source and Spike Mendelson, who's a top chef Teston and from Good Chef Good Stuff Eatery, are all going to be there
competing,
basically banging heads. It'll be interesting to see. So I don't know if you can talk somebody out of their tickets. This is absolutely worth doing.
But even if you can't, you can also support DC Central Kitchen. They need volunteers, they need help, and you can also always support them with a good old-fashioned check. So
check.
Right. All right. Also, as we do on every show, we like to leave you with a little quote.
Well, this is a great one from one of my favorite philosophers. I don't know if all of you are deep the way I am, but Dennis Leary once said, "Not eating meat is a decision. Eating meat is an instinct." And I believe that's true.
Well, and I think we learned a lot about eating meat and not eating meat today, thanks to our two guests.
So we want to thank our guests, author Deborah Krasner, beer director to the Stars, and I guess cider director to the Stars, Greg Engert, and Naj executive chef Glenn Babcock. Babcock. It's easy for me to say, isn't it, Glenn?
Can we keep that in for the TV, please?
Let's try that again. Glenn Babcock. Run it back. And next week, we've got a heck of a show.
We do. We have a great show next week. Lucinda Scala-Quinn, who is from Feeding Men and Boys fame. She's with Martha Stewart. She just launched her new TV show. She's going to be talking with us about her cookbook and her new show. Also, the Bacon Fest is coming to D.C. It's going to be at the National Harbor. We're going to have lots of bacon in studio and talking all about it. And Eric Platt is coming in. He's a return guest. We're going to be talking about wines that will make autumn even better.
And very briefly, if you want to know what's going on across the D.C. region, go to thelistareyouwantit.com. It's free to subscribe. There are hundreds and hundreds of events listed there. Tell you all about what's going on, what to do for Thanksgiving if you don't have any ideas. You can also follow Nikki on Twitter. And if you're of a mind and you're sitting around and you got the radio on, turn in WTOP at 12:50, and she's going to tell you about some cool stuff happening this week.
Absolutely. There's lots of good events.
I just want to remind everybody, next Saturday at 11 on TBD TV, the former News Channel 8, you're going to see this show. You'll get to see what everybody in studio looks like, especially me. And
most importantly,
we're also going to be the part of that show. We have an interview an exclusive that Nikki's got with Michael Mina and Eric Repair that you'll see, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So listen. We've had a great time here. You got anything else you want to say?
Well, I think if people want to find out about all the fun events going on this week, there's a lot of really good ones and fantastic promos happening. And if you go to thelistareyouwantit.com, you can certainly find out about all of them. Also, we'll list everything about Deborah's book on there. And, of course, everything about Meatless Monday that they're doing at Naj is on there. I don't have anything about ciders, Greg, so you're going to have to get me some information. All right?
We're definitely going to do a link to eatwild.com because that sounds very cool, too. And lastly, one thing that is happening next weekend that you definitely can get to, and that's a Metropolitan Cooking and Entertaining show, and that's why Eric Repair and Michael Mina and all these...
that is not why.
That's not why. That
was why Bobby Flay was on last week's show.
Bobby Flay, I can't tell the difference between these dudes. I wouldn't know them if I fell on them. But that's a great event. There's still tickets available for that show as well.
All right. Have a delicious week.
We'll see you next week.